Right, so I've seen a lot of stories at the moment on going around on Instagram. There's this flu that's going around that lasts for longer than a week, and a lot of people have been like, fucking hell, this is so long. If conditions like ME, Lyme disease, MCAS, POTS, long COVID, they last for years, and I'm not saying this to diminish like a week's worth of suffering or like 2 weeks worth of suffering. I'm more saying it to try to inspire a degree of like empathetic feeling towards the people who just have to kind of deal with symptoms day in, day out, every day of their lives, because desperately is needed funding in the medical sector for a lot of these more chronic illnesses that don't budge, because there's still little understanding as to why they just persist and persist and persist. And the only thing that's really going to shift the needle in that is enough people with empathy who don't have these conditions, who care and put resources into researching, funding research, being a bit of a spearhead on that. I'd like to do that myself. It's a strange thing. Until you get it, you don't really get it. You don't really get it, what it does to your mental health, to kind of just be constantly just walking through mud to try and get through the day, even on good days. You know, it kind of fluctuates in severity, but it's I'm in the position now. I've got a very big platform because of my music, and which means there's a lot more eyes on it. So I do urge a lot of people who are doing all right, who've got that energy, who've got that passion. If you're looking for something to do, a passion project or something like that, I do really recommend getting behind it. It's a great cause. There's millions of people that are displaced all over the world who are going through complications because of these more chronic illnesses. And, you know, people, we do desperately need better research, because when you're in the thick of it, particularly if you don't have very much money, you're just kind of left to suffer, and it's not really good enough, really. Like, a lot of people out there deserve full lives. And speaking as a British citizen, the NHS is falling apart. I think the NHS is a brilliant thing in theory and concept, and the more money that comes away from it, the more the resources are stretched. Like when I ended up in A&E a couple of weeks back, it's shambles, man. It really is for anything, and people will attest to that. I've heard some pretty horror stories. People going through cancer treatment. The organisation now is really suffering because money's being directed, taxpayer money is being directed away from the NHS. I eventually assume it's going to be destabilised and sold off and privatised with time, and that has its own pitfalls and problems. So really, like, we just kind of need to advocate for better healthcare, but ultimately just to push for better research, really, and understanding the core of what keeps these things going for so long. And the medical industry comes with a lot of its own pitfalls because of a profit before people mentality. And I've spoken to a lot of doctors now, either in the UK or over in the States and Canada side, and there's some pretty, you know, like, there are a lot of these medical companies who are becoming monopolies now, and they're making it a lot harder for even like natural supplement companies to run, because you have companies like Pfizer who are buying patents for a lot of treatments, or even simple vitamins and stuff like that, and becoming the mono source of where you're going to get these. And when you eliminate competition from a free market, you can basically dictate the price, and you can it's fucking criminal, really, what they're getting away with. A lot of these big companies claiming to be working in the interest of healthcare and stuff like that. I feel like that profit before people, you know, maybe has its place in certain businesses. It should be divorced from the healthcare sector, man. Like, these are people's lives. They're not fucking profit margins. It's people's well-being. It's people's lives. People are dying. This is a little bit of a side tangent. I don't mean to dilute the main message, but it's important that people understand what's going on. I also spoke to some the problem with private healthcare in some instances as well. I was spoken to somebody who was working over at a clinic over in Canada, and they said that the doctors would recommend not necessarily the best treatment for the patient, but the one that would make the doctor the most money, and that's happening in a day-to-day setting. So someone comes in, they go, oh, you're going to need a spinal fusion, when they don't need a spinal fusion, because a spinal fusion is going to make them the hospital pocket an extra grand. That's something that is happening, not everywhere, but it's one of the dangers of when you then start getting private. I feel like state-owned healthcare is a good thing, as long as the state is good. You know, as long as they're pumping enough money and resources and compassion and empathy into the way that they're treating people. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a conveyor belt-like system going on in the UK at the moment because it's so stretched, and I think we need to get back to the good old days of the NHS. Just going to wrap up this just because it's a lot of things that I've learned, and it kind of exposes what's going on a little bit. So you have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. They kind of operate over in America mainly, but it trickles down and affects the UK, it affects Canada, it affects a lot of things. And they're making it much harder, a much harder criteria for natural health supplement companies to exist, things that are really helping a lot of people. If you go on Amazon now and search for healthcare supplements, you'll notice that loads of them aren't online anymore. And a lot of them are dropping off the shelves like flies because they're struggling to compete and exist, because they have to go through these stringent regulatory testing services, which are really expensive, and a lot of them just crumble under the weight of it. Who suffers then? And that's disguised in the name of, like, you know, the safety of the people, but who suffers there at the end of the day is the people. And the FDA is probably in bed with these bigger companies, you know. And a lot of these drug companies are lobbyists within positions of government, within the private healthcare sector. It's no secret that, like, drug reps will come over and buy some fucking doctors' fancy meals and stuff like that. They get cash kickbacks for prescribing certain drugs over other ones. So it's all kind of skewed. When profit basically gets involved in the healthcare system, we don't get an accurate, true picture of the best possible treatments, and we don't get access to the best possible research, because if you can keep someone on symptom suppressive medicine for their whole life, that's more lucrative than a cure, right? So I think we just need to fuck off profit before people in healthcare, make it state funded, but with empathy, with compassion, and you know, look, that'll make more money for a society anyway, because healthy people, if you're looking at it in a capitalist sense, are good workers. So fuck it. One very last thing, just because I see comments sometimes, and it does bother me, I'm not going to lie and pretend it doesn't. Anyone who thinks that I'm using my health as like a marketing technique, as a way to get pity, attention, any of those things, can suck a dick, mate. Like, this is my life. I wake up, I take a bunch of pills, I bounce to doctors. It's been my life since I was 19. It's hard for it not to leak into my work. Also, if I wanted fast track to more like attention and publicity, I'd sign a major record label deal. I'd go to all of these red carpet events, and I'd do all the interviews that, like, where people ask. I rarely do those things because it's just not. I'm more concerned about creating. I love to make stuff. Basically, that's it. And the reason that I talk about my health a lot is for like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I wish that there were more people talking about this stuff so I didn't feel so alone. I do it for those people, to be like a source of like, oh shit, he's actually able to do what he loves, because it can very easily feel hopeless. And I have had so many times where I felt hopeless, and I was just desperately searching for little moments of light, success stories, people like pushing for it, people putting a positive spin on it, people making stuff that I could actually relate to, other than stuff that wasn't relatable to me because I was living this half existence, you know. And, you know, like now, and also as well, a story of somebody who came from fuck all, because I came from nothing. I didn't come from a rich, privileged background. It's not like I had access to a bunch of amazing healthcare. I just was my own advocate and very fucking persistent, and had some lucky breaks through how persistent I was, coming from fucking nothing. And that, if I can do it, other people can too, and they can get to a place where they can actually still follow their passions, even if it's a compromised way of following them. Like I, you know, things aren't roses for me, but that's why it's important. And if it does bother you, then just don't stick around. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to. No one's forcing you to. I just don't like getting messages from people being like, you're doing this because of this, because it's actually kind of off the mark. And for everyone else who is going through difficult times, and the music kind of feels like a bit of a companion and stuff, like I'm really glad, because that's what I wanted. And if I can be that for somebody, then that's fucking wicked, and is a lot of the reason that I do it.